Hello and welcome to today's live broadcast. Today we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So welcome wherever it is you're joining us from. Today Michael and I are going to share a little bit of our food story and how we have used our food story to make connections about where we are in our health today and where it is we want to move forward as aging people in today's society. So welcome, my name is Diane and this is my husband,
Michael.
And on Fridays we come together to discuss things that have to do with intermittent fasting and aging successfully, and we bring the conversation to our entire community. So generally we talk about for today's aging woman on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Friday we really do like to invite you to bring your significant other or any family members and friends to the discussion, because when you have a community of like-minded people around you, your likelihood of success just gets greater. So we are going to talk about our food story today and how powerful it is for us to make the connection to us and where we are today, and how it is we have either been exposed to and or conditioned by food, and how it's not always our fault when we end up in certain situations with our health and wellness. Sometimes it just happens to be the era that we grew up in, maybe some of the resources we had as children, and also decisions that were made for us when we were not in a decision-making situation. But the power that we have to connect that story to where we are today and where we want to go to our future is absolutely priceless, and it does give you an opportunity to take back control of your life now that you are in a decision-making situation. So we're going to kick it off today with Michael sharing a little bit of his food story, and then I'll share a little bit of mine as well. This is the type of work that we do in our intermittent fasting for today's Aging Woman course. We have an entire lesson on working through your food story and making connections with where you are today and why that might be the case and how you can make those decisions moving forward. So we always like to make sure that we are treating these discussions as a learning opportunity. Before I turn it over to Michael, I always like to ask that you take a second to hit that subscribe button or hit that like button. Share this broadcast with those in your community that you feel this would be beneficial for. I say the more we share this information, the better opportunity we have to spend our life around the people who are going to be living the same a lifestyle that we have, and that just makes life that much more fun. So Michael, what do you got going on?
Well, I hope that what I can share with you today with my food story will help you make some connections, because it took me a while to make some connections with my food story, but I think I did make it early on as a young adult, which I know saved me from having diabetes, because I was born a poor black child in Lexington, Kentucky, country boy for sure. We lived in a lot of different places, but mostly we were country, and my mom was a maid, and she worked full time, and most of the time it was me and my brother running around, and we were fasting, and we didn't even know we were fasting because we ate cereal with a ton of sugar on it. Usually cornflakes with a ton of sugar, and
then big gaps between your next meal.
Huge gap. I mean, we had nothing to eat until usually dinner time, because we just rode our bikes and played football in the streets. I mean, we were out all day until it was time till the lights went out. I mean, you remember those rules, right? Back in the day, lights go out, time to hit the door and have dinner. So anyway, we were little sugar addicts. We made our money when we were young kids. We made our money, collecting pop bottles is what we called them then. I don't know if they still call them that. We call them pop bottles.
That's a Kentucky
That's how
thing.
country we were, pop bottles. So we would collect pop bottles, and we'd go straight to the candy store. And you guys that are in our age bracket know like how cheap candy was back in the day, man. We'd load up, we'd take all of our money, and we'd buy as much candy as we possibly could, and that's what we ate on all day before dinner. So we definitely had some sugar issues. My brother showed some signs for sure of being an addict, which he did become a drug addict. And you could see those tendencies with the sugar. I mean, like, I would put a lot of sugar on my cornflakes, but for him it was, he put 10 scoops of sugar on it. And then our, Kool-Aid for dinner, it was, this much sugar in the bottom of that Kool-Aid jar, and it was, I mean, it's amazing that I survived not having diabetes, because my brother has diabetes. my father has diabetes and my mother has diabetes. That's my entire family. Everybody has diabetes except for me. So I did make that connection before it was too late, and I knew that there were some issues with sugar for us. I mean, even for dinner, because we ate a lot of pinto beans for dinner. I mean,
Because
like,
they were inexpensive.
yeah, they were
Yeah.
inexpensive. So that was like a dish that you had all the time. You know, special occasions was, you know, the collard greens and the chitlins and the hog brains and anything you can get from a pig. I mean, my mom's a daughter of a pig farmer, so anything you can get off of a pig, we would eat. You know, pig's feed, whatever. So our palates weren't really adjusted to having like all these pig brains and these different things. So we would smother everything in ketchup. Everything we smothered in ketchup. So we definitely had some sugar addictions for sure. And you know, I think as I got older, I kind of made that connection for me. Just I think on how I felt, and just knowing this was before my brother even had diabetes. Just knowing that my mom had diabetes and my dad had diabetes, I made that connection as a teenager. Like, I might have to make some changes with the way I eat, because you could tell that it was a lifestyle thing, because you know, just based on how we ate. I mean, like, just to give you an idea of what my mindset was back then as a kid, if we had all the money in the world, I would have had McDonald's every day, because that was kind of a special treat for us, because we didn't have a lot of money. So it was, you know, we'd be driving down the street and you see McDonald's, you're like, oh, please stop, please stop. I mean, we'd go every once in a blue moon, we'd go through the McDonald's drive-thru, and that was a treat. Friday night, once every 3 or 4 months, a bucket of KFC coming home, that was a treat. I mean, it just smelled up the whole house. So if I had my way as a kid, I would have that constantly. And then I think as I started to become a young adult, I did have those things constantly, because I could. I mean, I had my job at the movie theater, and I cut lawns and shoveled driveways and did all those things as I got a little older. So I was able to have those things all the time. And I did start to see a difference in how I felt and my weight and all these things. And then I had to take another look at my food story, like, okay, why is this happening? And I made that connection.
And,
so
and
I
you
hope
played,
you can make that connection.
and you played sports.
And I played sports
So
too.
if you think about kids today playing sports competitively in high school and even junior high school, like, you know, they have trainers and specific diets and nutrition plans. And Micah was playing football, right? And you ran track
Yeah,
too.
and I ran track.
Living on like cherry pies and Coke for lunch, because you got $1 a day to buy lunch and you made it do. So going to school all day, and then having lunch or sugar cereal for breakfast. Lunch was a cherry pie with the soda. And then you go to football practice, and then you come home and you're lucky if you have some beans on the stove. Or you guys lived on
Hot
ketchup
dogs,
packets
yeah.
and hot dogs. And so nutrition wasn't the thought. It was just food. And oftentimes we get stuck in that. Like, we get stuck in that. We just get food, and we don't consider the nutrition aspect of it. And are we getting nutrient dense foods in our day? And so there's this catch-22 that happens when you start to make that food connection, or you're trying to make up for something bad that happened in your childhood. You can also go the complete opposite way and become almost neurotic about nutrition, and become so paralyzed by having to have the best or the perfect or the macro counts or the calorie counts, that you go to the extreme other side of things, trying to fix something that maybe you experienced in your childhood that you weren't happy with. So really understanding your food story and understanding why we end up in certain situations gives us permission to make better decisions, and gives us permission to be okay with things that aren't maybe going the way we had planned, because now we have some data to back it up. And it's not like we're failures or we did anything wrong. It's just that that's how life was then, and life is different now. And are you going to continue to live in a situation where you're not making grown-up decisions for yourself, because your mindset could still be that poor little boy in Kentucky or the broken little girl in California or whatever it is that you haven't done the work on up here or in your heart to make informed decisions now that you have the opportunity to change. And so that's the beautiful thing about Michael's stories. He made all these connections about, he thought he was like allergic to all these foods growing up because he was constantly sick. And he found out that he wasn't allergic to the food. The food just wasn't prepared properly or wasn't stored properly, not for a lack of care, but just from lack
Just
of
what they knew.
resources. Yeah, and what you knew at the time. And so making that connection for Michael's been really fun to watch and has allowed us in our own life together. Because remember, when you're married to someone and you're sharing a lifestyle, he brings his food story, I bring my food story, and together we have to make that work and help each other create a food story as a family, and then make sure that we're helping our kids create their own food story as well. And
Right,
I know,
absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And so I know for a lot of women, the food story portion of this healing process is big, because not only do we have situations like Michael talked about, lack of resources or maybe just lack of nutritional knowledge or whatever it is that you had growing up, but we also have this stigma of body image issues and the diet mentality and watching a mom be unhappy with her body as you were growing up and saying negative things about herself. And we have to get that mindset fixed with ourselves as well. And I know for me, I had a crazy food story that I didn't even make the connection to until I actually started intermittent fasting. And I had this time to really sit in a state of empty and make the connections with some of the things that were going on when I was growing up as well. And I always laugh that, it's amazing that I actually have teeth in my mouth because I was raised on watered down corn syrup because I was a very colicky baby and I couldn't take formula. My mom didn't breastfeed me. And so I was raised on sugar water. Like as an infant, I had sugar water. And I'm like, how do I even have teeth? So when I became a diabetic in my late 40s and I started looking through all these things in my life and where certain foods and scenarios fell into place for me, it made sense to me why I was a diabetic. And that is such a freeing feeling to know that there are things that you can connect to where you end up. And then you really do have the power to make those changes. So I've been lactose intolerant my entire life. It started as an infant when I was given Caro syrup instead of milk. And because I was crying all the time, and colic is still today a mystery, but we swear with our kids that colic is just a milk intolerance. Your kids are miserable getting milk pumped into their body. And then I was raised on vegetables covered in Velveeta cheese from a box that's on a shelf that's not even really cheese, but it's full of milk byproduct and all these additives and milk proteins. And I was sick all the time. I had pneumonia. I was constantly sick. I was frail. I was pale. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't doing well in school. And all of those things are directly related to the nutrition that I had available to me as a child and as a young adult. And I was a high school soccer player, and I had a full-time job, and I was going to school full-time, and I was exhausted all the time, and I did so poor in school, and I really thought that I was just dumb. And it wasn't that I was dumb, I just didn't have the mental capacity to use my brain because I was not being nourished properly, and I was just being beaten to the ground. And when I moved away from my home and joined the military, and I was able to finally make decisions for myself as a young adult, all these things started to fall into place. And then when I started to get sick in my mid ages after I had my own kids, those connections really did fall into place. And when I was able to really journal out my food story and make those direct connections, and being a 40-year-old mother, giving birth at 40 also increases my risk of being a diabetic, despite the fact I didn't get gestational diabetes as a pregnant woman. All of those things take the guilt and the shame and that failure mentality off of you and allows you the opportunity to make sense of it. And then what intermittent fasting has done for Michael, and it has done for me, is it has given us the power to undo all of those things that we felt were really damaging us. And it gave our body the opportunity to finally have it say and do what it's supposed to do. And that is reverse and reset all of those things that were just being triggered because we didn't know any better, back in the day, or the people who were making decisions for us didn't know any better either. I have no hard feelings toward the way I was raised in that aspect. I know Michael doesn't either. We're so grateful that our parents did what they could for us, but nonetheless, it didn't work very well. And that was just the times. And so we have better times now. And as Michael would have loved to go into the McDonald's drive-thru every day, there are some families today that do that, and that's not any better, right? It's not any better to have your kids growing up on fast food, even though that is one of those things that is just super, super convenient today. So finding that balance, and then as parents, what we've also realized is that we're responsible now for helping our own children create their food story, and what's the legacy we want them to have and the connections that they're going to make for themselves as they become young adults also, and are they going to be able to connect the decisions that we made for them growing up nutritionally and food wise to some of the things that they, I'm sure, will have issues with as they grow older as well. So it's a super, super powerful exercise.
Yeah, and there's things like having an acquired taste for vegetables. Like my dad did not. He still to this day he does not eat vegetables.
Oh no.
My brother is not a big vegetable fan. I was never a big vegetable fan, and the only way I started to learn to like vegetables was the way it was prepared, because the way it was prepared in Kentucky, it was soggy and tastes really green to me. Like a Brussels sprout that's overcooked to me tastes like a ball of green, and I hated it. It took me forever to eat that in a sitting down at a meal. But Diane made some before that. It tastes like candy, and that's a Brussels sprout, and that's
Right.
like probably my worst food on the planet. And to make a Brussels sprout taste like something that's sweet blew me away.
Yeah.
But I think if your food's prepared a certain way, you can acquire a taste. And it's the same thing with fish. My dad, my brother, they'll throw up on fish. Well, when you're eating fish that's coming out of some pond and it's like some fishy, it'd make anybody throw up. You know what I mean? But if you can eat some really good fish that's out there, some salmon and like a lot of things that we eat, tapia or whatever. I mean, all these different tapia. Oh, that's a good tapia. Salmon, tilapia. I mean, there's so many good, fish out there that we didn't have an opportunity to eat growing up. And I know my dad probably never had that opportunity. He was eating probably something that came out of a creek or out of a pond that tastes really fishy. So you can grow an acquired taste for some healthy foods by having it prepared a different way.
Yeah, and then also, and I don't know what Michael's story is on this, but my story too was we were not allowed to leave the dinner table until the food was gone off of our plate. Like there's, starving kids in other countries. And I learned really early on to just throw up, So it was like, if you're going to make me sit here until I'm done with my eggplant, I'll just throw up. And then, that was my way out. And, how unhealthy for a young girl.
I had a better plan than that.
I didn't have a dog.
We used to take liver, we'd have that, my mom would make up that fried liver with onions. It smelled so good when it was cooking. But that gamey taste, it was just the worst thing ever for me and my brother. So we would take those livers, we'd open the back door once she left the room, and we'd heave them back to the dog, and he'd gobble it down in one chomp, and it was like the best thing to get rid of that.
Yeah, so liver. I didn't have a dog, so I learned the other route of getting out of eating my food, which is so unhealthy in the mental and emotional aspect of eating with a young teenage girl. Not to mention the physical damage that you can do to yourself. So we have to be really careful about that too, and learn those kind of things about ourselves and how those things were presented to us, and did it work? And are we repeating those same things in our own legacy with our children? Are we making them eat, clean their plate before they leave the dinner table? And is it just easier to dish up less food? I mean, we always make our kids try new things, but we don't force them. We give them a nice variety of things, and that, because that didn't work for us. It didn't work for me to throw up at the dinner table, and that could lead to all kinds of disorders and in eating, emotional issues going down the road as well. So we have to be very aware of that. And then we also had, situations of, my mom had her food, my dad had his food, and we were lucky to get something fun in the middle of that. And so we often just binged on food. You got it. I had you know, we had 5 people in our family, you ate it as soon as it hit the pantry, or you probably weren't going to get any. So we tended to overeat certain things too, because it was like this scarcity mentality, you know, you better get it before it's gone. And so all of those things do carry over. And I know with a lot of the women I've counseled, even things like growing up in poverty and having the scarcity mentality and needing your refrigerator full and eating food because you don't know when the next meal is going to come, despite the fact that your life is completely different today. All those emotional wounds and those deep-seated fearful thoughts stay with us until we recognize them and then make a very conscious decision to do the work to change them. So we often have to slow down enough just to recognize that those things are still carrying with us. I know there was a long time I carried around the little girl, I always called it the damaged girl part of me, and it wasn't serving me well. So sometimes we have to sit with ourselves and realize where that damaged girl's coming up, and do we have an opportunity to change some of that so that we don't carry it forward? Because I don't want my daughter to go through the things that I went through as a young woman, going on into her young womanhood and into becoming a woman and a mother herself. So we have to be very aware of that and then make the time to make those changes and connections for sure. So we hope that this helps you understand how powerful a food story is. Like I said, we have an entire lesson on this in our intermittent fasting for today's Age of Woman course, because it's important to us. It's important for us to dialogue this, to journal it, to recognize it, and then make a conscious decision, whether that's working for you or not. And if it's not working for you, then you have the power to make that change for sure. So I'm going to go in and read all the questions and comments really quick, and then we will get out of here because we are trying to keep this to about 30 minutes, and we're just about there. Plunkett, hello, girlfriend, and Barbara Richards is here. Hello. Carly, are you on there still, girlfriend? It's good to see your name pop up on there. Lucy,
Carly, hey Carly.
Started my fast on the 5th of January. Today's the 20th, going for 40. Feel fantastic, nothing but water. Girlfriend, you are killing it. Dana, loving your January course and learned so much. Would you recommend during the fasting window to take exogenous ketone supplements? You're such a great coach. Love you. Dana, love you too, girlfriend. I think I emailed you back about that, so we'll talk about that offline. Those are doing anything inside of your fasting window is always super specific to the person and your situation. So we'll do that offline. So we'll do that through email, and I'll give you my kind of experience with that as well. And then Carla, my first live chat and introduction to intermittent fasting. I'm 60 years old and have been addicted to food since I was 17. 43 years. Yeah, it's a serious thing. There was a Dateline special I watched one time about food addiction, and how food addiction is a bigger issue than heroin addiction and alcoholism. Because with drug addiction and alcoholism, we can make a conscious decision to exit away from that specific part of our life, right? You can change your associations, you can avoid people who are indulging in those kind of things. We have the power to, with counseling and work and all that, it's not easy, but you can eliminate those temptations from your life. Food is a necessity. We need it to survive, and it's everywhere. So it is one of those addictions that is the hardest to break and the hardest to recover from. So it's a serious issue, and the one thing that I can say about this community that we have here is when you can really feel the power of hunger and how empowering it is to just be with yourself in a state of hungry and experience what we call that energized sense of calm, it can be a very healing opportunity for a lot of us, especially women. And I know that's where I really found my deepest healing, is when I got to that point with intermittent fasting, when I was okay with myself without food. And that's a powerful thing, and it's something that I think is worth looking into and experimenting with, because once you get it, it's freeing for sure. So I wish you all the best with that for sure. Ginger, dang, got sidetracked. Girlfriend, you're here. That's okay, and you can watch the replay. Judy, November 2019 grad, loving this lifestyle and community. Teresa, I'm from Kentucky too, and sweets were a huge part of our life. Homemade pies, cakes, and all kinds of desserts were common. Yeah, for sure. And this guy used to live on ketchup packets. They'd be playing out all day, and they wouldn't have any, they didn't have snacks, so they would just be gone all day playing, and they would live off ketchup packets.
And
right?
my lunch in California, I moved to California when I was 14 and went to high school in California. And my lunch every day, no joke, was those, what do you call those cherry pies? You guys remember those cherry pies with the hard crust and the frosting on it? I don't remember the name of the brand, but I got one of those for lunch every day.
It's like a sugar coating on it.
Yeah, and I get an orange juice. How did I make it through? I don't know how I made it through 3 hours of football practice on that, but
know.
I did.
Donna, I love your hair. Always look forward to your lives. Thank you so much. I got it cut yesterday. Thank you. I love it. I appreciate the compliment. Carla, carb addicted since 17 years old and have added a serious sugar addiction in the last 4 years. Carla, you have to take serious notice of that and make a decision that you don't want to be addicted. Addiction with food is super serious, and it's worth paying attention to. It can be very controlling of your life. It will keep you in that state of, you know, of start, stop, or what I like to call optimistic failure with dieting. And so taking it slow and from a really thoughtful type of place, as opposed to the panic diet, like this is going to be finally the thing that works, and really going to the source of it will really be beneficial to you for sure. So I wish you the best of luck with that for sure. Debbie, I definitely have a sugar addiction. It takes constant diligence to select good dessert choices. Well, if you have a sugar addiction, dessert's not going to be the answer, even if it's healthy. You really need to break the addiction first and then ease back into some things so that they have their proper place in your life for sure. It's not that desserts are bad, but you have to break the addiction first and then reevaluate how important that really is when you don't feel addicted. Robin, my mom talked negatively about her body and dieted constantly. She ate like a bird, always slim, still at 676. Yeah, and slim doesn't necessarily mean healthy, right? I say here all the time that it's a three-pronged approach, right? So we want to make sure that we're mentally healthy about the decisions that we're making. We're doing it for the emotional right reasons, and that physically we're taking care of our body for tomorrow and not constantly beating ourselves into the ground or speaking negatively about it because of decisions we consciously made in the past. So we have to really approach all three of those, and I strongly believe that the mental and the emotional are the first two. The physical will just come on its own when you're mentally making better decisions and they're based on the right emotional reason as well. The physical part doesn't do anything but catch up for sure, and then you have to focus less on it than you had to in the past. Julie, food issues and inability to access and afford healthy food can be difficult for many. We need to be inclusive for some by talking about IF and eating on reduced resources. The beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is it is reduced resources. So we noticed a huge shift in what we were doing at the grocery store and how we could up the quality of our food because we were spending so much less money on filler food. So when you're intermittent fasting, the way I like to teach it, which is 20 hours a day, you have 4 hours to feast. And once you graduate from the intermittent fasting for today's Aging Woman course and you have your hunger hormones balanced out, you don't need a lot. You need nutrition. So we want to go for quality over quantity. And when you eat nutrient-dense foods, you don't need as much. So all of those quick fix, supplementation, desperation, paying money for that next diet thing, going back to the same thing that wasn't working for you before, you don't have to spend your money on that. You can spend your money on good quality food, and you don't waste your money on overbuying. You buy what you need in a 4-hour window. It's amazing how much money you'll actually save, and you'll get better quality food for sure. Mas Barino, where do you get healthy source tilapia? I hear so many bad things about it. Yeah, there's the good camp and there's the bad camp with tilapia. I just say you probably just want to make sure that it's farmed in a place that's well, or you're getting it fresh. I don't know. And all those things with those type of purchases, I always say are a gut thing. And then you have to just make sure that the benefits are outweighing the risks. And just don't rely on tilapia alone. I
don't even know why I threw out tilapia. We don't even really eat tilapia that much.
We mostly eat
everything's salmon for us.
wait.
I just came off the top of my head, tilapia.
But again, it's that gut thing, you know. And if you're not eating tilapia every day, is tilapia every now and then going to be okay for you? Yeah, it's not going to be a problem. So just go with your gut on that one for sure. And then I grew up with the clean your plate mentality, and we always finished a meal with dessert. There are habits that have taken a lifetime to break. IF has given me the tools to succeed. Kathy, I agree for sure. And then, so we grew up with that. You can't get up from the dinner table until you clean your plate. And then my kids got this from my mother, their grandmother. Oh, don't worry about finishing your dinner. You have two stomachs.
We have 2 stomachs.
A dinner stomach and a dessert stomach. That almost made me throw up. I'm like, what? What? We didn't have that when we were growing up. How come my kids?
Yeah, we only had one stomach growing up.
And that was the one that had to clean your plate. So Kathy, yeah, I totally agree with you. Ginger, what do you do when you don't feel hungry, but really feel weak and a bit dizzy about 3 hours before you are 20 hours in. If you're feeling weak and dizzy before you're into a 20-hour fast, it's probably a lack of hydration and a lack of minerals, or you're still riding the sugar addiction wave. So you have to get through all of that, and then you'll get to the point where you're at 22 hours and you're feeling amazing. So hydration, minerals, and breaking the sugar
Where's the
addiction.
song? Breakthrough to the other side?
Yeah, exactly. Robin, what type of mineral drops do you recommend? I don't recommend mineral drops. I don't use them. We use mineralized water. I always say just do a simple Google search, and there's plenty of options out there. Read the ingredients labels and then make the best choice for you. CV signed up for this February course. Feel like I've already learned so much from watching your videos. Yeah, but there's a thing that happens. When you jump into the course, you make this commitment and you make this mental and emotional shift that you're all in for you. Remember, when I'm talking here on these live videos, I'm talking to the masses. And when you get into a course, it's you and me. And I ask you to think, and I ask you to make decisions, and I ask you to do the work for you. So you get to be the active participant once you jump into the course, and you get to personalize this and craft this for you as the individual woman. So it's magical and a huge difference for women who actually jump into the course and do this for themselves.
And it's amazing because I'm the biggest fly on the wall. I mean, I get to see all this stuff, and the comments to come back, and the success stories are just amazing.
Yeah. Sid, good to see you with the girlfriend, getting to see you live. Awesome. Yeah, she just finished up our midlife mindset shift course. So she was a graduate from our intermittent fasting for today's aging woman course in December. She just graduated from our midlife mindset shift course. And the one thing she said in one of her comments to me was that she's so glad she jumped into the course. She thought she could do it on her own, and being in the course made a huge difference for her. So we're super proud of you, Sid, and we're super proud to have you in our graduate community. My girl Potato Love is back. How much of an open window generally do you leave for yourself to eat? Some days I'm not that hungry, and other days I'm very hungry. I really teach that you have to go with time and consistency in the beginning until you've really balanced out your hunger hormones, and then some days you're hungry and some days you're not. So I would say just go with the way you feel for sure for now. And then Renee, 18 to 20 hour fast is easy for me now. Working toward a 24-hour fast is my next goal. March 2017 grad. Thanks for all the real life info. It has helped me. Renee, it's so good to have you with us. You're like an OG girl. You were in my very first intermittent fasting for today's aging woman course way back in March 2017. Always love when you can come back around to hang out with us. Robin, I just had arthroscopic knee surgery this AM. Any reason why I can't continue to intermittent fast? You are in a situation for every reason to fast. Intermittent fasting heals your body on a cellular level. Girlfriend, if you continue fasting and you feast well during your feasting time, you will go back to your doctor for a follow-up appointment, and he will be blown away at how quickly your body is recovering. You'll bounce back from the anesthesia. Your body will reduce its inflammation so much faster. Your body will be a magically healing machine. So I would say fast your way back to your feet for sure. And then Carla, do you have to start at 20-hour fast? Can you work up to it? Carla, we teach all that inside the intermittent fasting for today's aging woman course. Sid says, don't hesitate, jump into Di's course. Thank you so much, girlfriend. And I appreciate the fact that you realized that you thought you could do this alone, and being with a community and a very structured course really does help you get on the fast track with all of this for sure. And then Heather started with 16-hour first week, then 18-hour the second week, 20-hour the third week. The course works. Awesome. Heather is a graduate as well. Super excited that you guys are seeing what it means to do this work for you. It's so easy to say. I always say, it's super easy to watch Jeopardy from the couch, right? Like, I'm a champ on the couch. But man, if I was in that room with Alex,
we get destroyed.
having to hit a buzzer, I would be destroyed. So sitting on the sidelines is not always the best place to make change and create change for yourself. Sometimes you have to just put both feet into the game, go all in, and make the investment in you and your future. And you can see from a lot of the graduates that keep coming around and who have taken the course have really found that going all in and making an investment.
And the big thing is being a part of a community.
Oh yeah, is
one of the most amazing parts. You know, that people get all this success is they're around like-minded people, and you can stick with a thing and be in a community. It's incredible.
And Nikki, looking forward to the February course. I've learned so much from you already. Thank you. Yeah, girlfriend. I can't wait. I think I already read that one. And LA Laser, getting my mind geared up for the February class. Yes. You guys, it's going to be so much fun. I love hanging out with you guys. I love getting to know more about your personal story. I love being able to call you my girlfriends when we're in class and hang out together. And so it, for me, is a special thing too. So I don't want you guys to think that I take that lightly. I do appreciate the fact that you're investing this time and resource in you. And I make sure that I give you all that I can while you're in class with us as well. Mary Sue, thanks for jumping in with us on Facebook as well from West Virginia. Deanna, thank you with all my heart, you guys. March 2018 course and all of your other courses have been life-changing for me. Healed and continuing to have more healing happening. Deanna, girlfriend, thank you so much for saying that. You're like an OG too now. I guess I have to call my 2017
Your
and 2018 graduates my OGs, and you guys keep coming back around. Yeah, the healing continues, right? I always say when you start to make these changes mentally, emotionally, and physically, you have to go back and reevaluate some decisions that you made. We are constantly adjusting lifestyle changes and choices that we are making for ourselves because our priorities change. The more you heal, the deeper your commitment will be to healing. And some of the things I swore I would never give up, I've given up because they just stopped being worth it to me. So keep an open mind to that as well, and be willing to reevaluate some choices that you're making in your life, and why are those things still valued as important to you when they might not be serving you anymore. And I think that's another
that's the truth.
Healing level that a lot of these graduates are getting, and multiple course members. We have several different levels of courses that you can take as you start to heal. You get to those next levels and you're like, why am I still doing this? And if you really can't give yourself a valid answer, that's a good time to test letting it go and see how your life goes. And sometimes we've tested things and went, we miss it too much. We want it back in. And then there's other times we've tested things in our life and we're like, why are we holding on to that for so long? And the growth opportunity for that, in not just the nutritional aspect of your life, but the relational aspect of your life, and the spiritual aspect of your life, and the connection aspect of your life, and living your life consciously and present in the moment, and the value system that you have completely changes. And to think that it all started back on one day with just not making the best choices about food. So the evolution of all this is absolutely fantastic when you approach it from the mindset aspect and not the quick fix weight loss, for sure. Jennifer Richer, hello from Missouri. I'm a September 2019 grad. Not quite an OG yet, but we will get you there for sure. And a midlife mindset class. I'm so grateful that you cut this path for us. IF has changed my life in so many ways. Jennifer, thank you so much. So she's a graduate of my advanced level course too, where we really do focus on the mindset shift, that at this midlife stage in life, especially for us women, we have to pay attention to that. We can't keep living like we used to. We need to start thinking about how we want to live moving forward, and the way we really want to live our lives moving forward. And we have the power to have everything we want in that regard as well. So Jennifer, always love seeing you here as well. My midlife mindset shift women, they're doing the work for sure, and they're making some great strides also. So we're going to call it a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this gives you the courage and maybe some skills to sit down with a journal or a piece of paper and a pen and write down some things from your past that are just part of who you are and part of your story, and then make a decision on whether that's serving you well. And if it's not serving you well, then make some decisions that you can put some things in place that might change the course of your path moving forward. As always, I want to invite everyone who has not yet taken our intermittent fasting for today's Aging Women course to jump in with us. It's super fun. It's a 3-week course. I'm in there with you. I walk you through everything, and you'll come out of that 3 weeks feeling so empowered and so energized about the future that you have when you start to make some pretty informed choices for yourself. Registration's open, so make sure you check the links in all of our description boxes. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. We're going to have a great weekend. We hope you guys have a great weekend, and then we'll catch you back here.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, on Monday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be discussing something about the intermittent fasting and today's aging woman.